What is up, guys? Jordan from Holiday Lighting and Creations here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make these massive oversized 6-foot tall light bulbs and the oversized plug for your yard at Christmas time. Let's get into it. This is all the materials you will need. You will need a 3/4 inch 4x8 sheet of plywood, preferably sanded, a piece of tin. We had this one on our property, so I decided to use it, but you can use any tin similar to it. A 4x8 1/8 inch sheet of hardboard, two 8-foot 2x4s, and green oil-based paint, 3-inch screws, wood putty, a putty knife, and roofing nails. Now that we have all the materials for our base, we're going to make a few cuts. The first cut I made was a 4-inch cut on the 2x4. I measured 4 inches and I cut 6 of these. The next cut I did was a 28.5 inch cut on the 2x4, and I did this 4 times. Once the 2x4s were cut, I moved on to the plywood. I cut 2 round circles with a diameter of 17.5 inches and 2 round circles with a diameter of 24 inches. After you have cut out your plywood piece that is 17.5 inches, you're going to want to measure 2 points from here to here that are 4.5 inches from each other. And then we're going to cut along that straight line, and you will do this for both pieces. Now that we have 4 of our 28.5 inch 2x4s cut and 2 of our 17.5 inch round tops cut, we're going to screw them together. And to do this, I put 2 2x4s along the points we measured for our 4.5 inch straight line we cut. And this will be the back of the bulb where the clip part goes. And that's where we're going to start our tin as well. So what I'm going to do is, this is the type of tin I'm using, and this is the top, but I'm actually using the bottom because it looks more like the grooves as you would see on a real light socket. And I'm going to start it right here on this back 2x4. And then you're going to place your next 2x4 wherever the next groove lands. I skip a few because you don't really need that many 2x4s, and then I put the 2x4 here, and I do that all the way around. And depending on the tin, you're going to want it to end just like you wanted to start it. So you want it to end on this 2x4 like this. Once you have nailed on your tin with the roofing nails, it should look like this. There should be roughly a 4.5 inch gap between here and here, all the way down, because this is where we're going to put a 4.5 inch by 30 inch piece of plywood so we can screw our clip to it. And it should look like this all the way around. And for my tin, my first piece ended right here, so what I did was I nailed it to my 2x4 first, and then I had an extra piece and I just nailed it to it all the way around, and you can't even tell. Now we are going to make the clip out of 2x4s, and to do that I created this template. The first measurement we have is a 2x4 cut at 4 inches at 30 degrees. The next one is 3.25 inches cut at 30 degrees. The next two are both 3 inches at 30 degrees. The middle one is 10.75 inches, and it is not cut at an angle. The next one is 3 inches cut at 30 degrees, and the last one is 7.75 inches cut at 30 degrees. And I found out when I did this, after I made the template, some of my measurements were actually a little more than 30 degrees. So before you screw everything together, you will want to lay them all together to see if they actually line up perfectly. And if something's a little off, you will just have to trim a few of the boards. Once you have all your clip pieces cut out and screwed together, it'll look like this. And this is how it's going to sit up against the socket. But before you screw, make sure you drill pilot holes where each screw will go so the board doesn't split. And before you bring each board together, put wood glue so you have a tight bond once it's all put together. And when you're done, you'll have these little areas where they stick up above where the clip part is, and that's okay. We're going to now sand those off all the way around so the clip will be completely smooth when we're done. Now that you've filled in all your holes on your clip with putty and completely sanded it down so it's smooth, you're going to take a piece of plywood and cut it 4.5 inches wide by 30 inches long, and you're going to screw your clip to it. And the clip is going to go all the way down to the bottom of the piece of plywood, And then once it's screwed together, you're going to place it in that area where we cut off the top and bottom of the round plywood that is 4.5 inches wide. And you're going to place it in this area, and it'll look like this. And you're going to take your 3-inch screws and you're going to drill from here into the 2x4 that's right here and right here, and you're going to do that all the way down so it's nice and secure. Now that you've installed your clip to the stand, you will now get your 2-foot in diameter round piece of plywood and screw all 6 of the 4-inch 2x4s to it. It really doesn't matter on the spacing of the 2x4s, just make sure they're somewhat equally spaced. And once they're glued on, like I have it here, you will screw this entire piece down to the stand that we've built. And once that is screwed down, you will add the top round 2-foot in diameter piece to the top of the 2x4s, and I'll screw it together. Now we are going to cut our hardboard 5.5 inches wide by however long your circumference is. It might be different than mine. Now that we've added the 5.5 inch hardboard band around the top and the 3-inch band around the middle, it's time to putty, and then we can paint. Once your base is painted, we are going to add the rod which will hold the styrofoam bulb in place. And the materials for that you will need is a 1/2 inch flange, a 1/2 inch by 18 inch galvanized pipe, 4 bolts, and 4 washers. And you're going to screw the flange in place in the center of the top. And since I'm using a 16-inch drill bit to drill up into the styrofoam, I will need to cut the iron pipe at 14 inches. Once you've screwed your flange down and you've screwed your pipe in, it should look like this. And make sure when you get the pipe, it is the threaded pipe so you can screw it into the flange. Once you have your light bulb base built, next you're going to want to find a large piece of styrofoam. In this instance, I'm using a 4-foot by 8-foot by 2-foot piece of styrofoam. I found it on Facebook Marketplace, and I wanted it this big because I'm making multiple bulbs. But if you're only making one bulb, your styrofoam needs to be 27 inches for your length, 27 inches as your width, and 41 inches as your height. Now that we have our styrofoam cut to the correct size, it's time to draw our light bulb pattern on it. And we're going to draw that on each side. Once you have your light bulb pattern traced on one side, you're going to want to trace that same pattern on a piece of paper so it's equal on the other side. Now that your pattern is traced on one side, you're going to repeat this step on all the other sides. Once you cut out both sides with the hot wire, you're going to repeat the same steps. So you're going to turn it around, but it needs to be cut like this. So we're going to put the pieces we just cut back on like this, and you're going to tack it into place with nails. You're going to do the same thing with the bottom piece, put it back on, and the 2 back pieces. You're gonna so basically it looks like your block you just cut. And now you're going to take your hot wire and you're going to cut the same way you just did on the other side. And when you're done, it will come out like this, where it's all equal on all the same sides. Once you've cut all 4 sides of your styrofoam, you're going to want to find the center point on each side and make a line all the way from the top to the bottom. This way we can now measure from the center line out so we can make our next cut on these 4 corners. Now that we have 4 sides of our styrofoam cut out, we're going to cut more off. So what you're going to do is measure from the center line at a height of 0 inches at the bottom, a width of 4 1/4 inches, at a height of 13 3/4, a width of 5 3/4 inches, At a height of 24 1/4 inches, you're going to measure a width of 5 1/4 inches. And at a height of 31 1/2 inches, you're going to measure a width of 4 1/4 inches. Now that you've plotted all your points, we're going to connect the dots. And to do this, I used a yardstick that was flexible so I could get that curve look. And then I connected all the points. And once you do that on all sides, we're going to move on to the next step. Now that we have everything measured out, it's time to cut our 2 dotted lines. One on this side and one on this side. Once you have finished your previous cuts, it's time to measure for our final cuts we're going to make. At the bottom, I measured 2 inches wide from the corner. At a height of 13 3/4 inches, I measured 2 3/4 inches wide from the corner. And then once you are done with these measurements, you're going to take your yardstick and you're going to connect the points in an arc shape all the way up to the top point. And you will repeat this step on all sides, and then we're going to cut along the black lines like we have been doing. Once you have all the foam cut out, it's time to sand the foam down on the edges to make it smooth. And for that, we're going to use this horse brush. And you're just going to run your brush down each side until it's smooth all the way around. Now that we have the styrofoam carved out to the shape we want, it's time to sand it. Now that we have our bulb shape created, we're going to drill a hole from the bottom into the bulb so our dowel can fit in. Once we have our styrofoam bulb sanded down, we're going to apply this spackling. I got this in a gallon jug because it takes about half of it for one bulb. And you'll want to put it on thick, and then once that is done, you will sand it to where your bulb is smooth. Once you've applied all your spackling, you will wait until it's dry. You will know it's dry when all the spackling turns white. This is all the supplies you will need to build the plug. This is the measurement of the plywood board you will need to cut for your plug top and your plug bottom. After you have cut out your plug shape, you will now draw on your design. This is all the measurements you will need to draw your layout, and so you can draw your designs in the blue areas marked here. Now that I have my board measured and marked out, I printed out some letters and used transfer paper to put them on the wood. Now that we have our letters traced on, we are going to route them out. Once you have your letters routed out, you will now take your 3/4 inch plywood and cut the measurements that I have marked here. Now that you have all your pieces cut, this will be the direction all the pieces face and about the area they will go in. This is the precise measurement of where your pieces will go. Once you lay them out and they fit perfectly, you will glue the bottom of them and glue them to the board, and then you will screw them down so they are all secure. Now that we have all of our letters cut out, it's time to glue and screw them down. The next step is to enclose the top. So what I did was I cut 6 12-inch 2x4s and put them around the edge. Then I wrapped it in 3/4 inch plywood. Once you have all your side panels and the back piece nailed on, you're going to want to create the lid, which is this piece right here. And it goes on the front and it lips over 1 inch on this side and 3 inches on this side. Same on the other two sides. After we've cut out our prongs and attached them to the top part, we're going to now screw this to the plug. Now that everything is screwed together, you will now putty the screw holes and any other remaining cracks there are. Now that we've patched all of our holes and cracks, it's time to paint. Now that we have our plug painted, I decided that I wanted to fill in the letters that were routed out with a darker color so they popped more. So what I did was I went ahead and spray painted over all the letters, and now I'm going to take the paint that we painted the plug with and roll over it lightly. And if you have any excess paint, you're going to want to roll it in an area just to get rid of, so you don't have a lot of it on there. And then you're going to lightly go over your area like this. So the letters pop, and you're going to do that until the dark green disappears and it blends in with the plug very well. Once you are done rolling over the original green paint, it should look like this. The dark should still remain inside the routed out letters.
To build the cord, you will need all the supplies listed here.
The last and final thing we're going to build is our foam cord. And what you're going to want to do is get 2 foam tubes. I got these from Home Depot. And every 3 feet you put a toothpick and you glue them together, and I use Gorilla Glue. And once the glue's dry, we're going to paint them green. Once you have your foam tube glued together and painted, you want to get a dowel rod that will fit inside of these holes. And you want to cut them at 3 inches, and you'll use 2 for each side. And then you're going to get a 4-inch screw and screw it into the base towards the bottom, and you want this about 90 degrees from your clip, and you'll do this on both sides so your foam cord can fit in just like that. And now that we've completed all the steps in our big project, this is what the final product looks like. Whether you made 1 bulb or 5 bulbs, it doesn't matter. I decided to display mine where I had 2 laying down and 3 standing up, and the giant plug over here. Thank you for tuning in, and this has been Jordan at Holiday Lighting Creations, and I want to wish you a very Merry Christmas.